Hi, my name is Scotty B. Thank you for tuning in for College Radio Day 2018. This year's theme was When All Else Fails, College Radio Speaks. I'd like to introduce you to this year's chairman, Tony Morehouse. He exemplifies in every way this year's theme. He's going to share his story of strength, courage, and the powerful force that college radio had on his life. After you hear his compelling story, you will understand why, when all else fails, college radio speaks. Tony?
How do, sir? How do you do?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
We're a little frazzled around here, but yeah.
Frizzle-frazzled is how I like to say it.
Definitely.
But we're having a lot of fun here today because today's a really special day, right? It's College Radio Day, and Tony, you are the producer for this show, aren't you?
Yes, all blame lies with me. That's very true.
Well, you're doing a great job so far, and now you're on the opposite end of the receiving part here, and you're being interviewed to talk about your story, which actually, as I mentioned, is a great story, and we look forward to it. Let's start off with your how you got started here. What made you get involved with college radio?
Well, it definitely stems from my experience that I will speak about shortly, but I really like telling people what to listen to. I like sharing music. Music is pretty much the driving force for me. You know, pretty much everything revolves around music for me. You know what I mean? I've always got the radio on in my head. I'm always listening to something new. Always looking forward to experiencing and finding new music and sharing it. So it seemed like a natural move to jump into college radio and try and cast a wider net, if you will.
Sure, yeah. So how would you say you got started with KLBC and KCTY here?
I needed a class so I can get 12 units, and so it's kind of like, well, I'll take that class. It seems kind of interesting. But in the back of my head, it was always an obvious choice because, well, for the previous experience, which I will speak of in a little bit, but you know, there's pottery and there's fine arts and there's all that sort of stuff. It just, none of those things ever called to me the way that radio and music do. So.
Yeah. So with radio, have you always known you wanted to get into that, or was it more of like a trial and error?
No, definitely not something I ever thought of as doing for a hobby or for profession or anything like that. And I'm certainly not good enough to do either of those. So for me, it's just
I think some people will beg to differ.
It's a lot of waiting around and seeing if it's a lot of throwing something at the walls and seeing if something sticks.
Sure, shotgun effect. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So when you got started, would you say how kind of music were you into, and how did you think that influenced your decisions in terms of getting involved more on the back end?
Well, I play music, and that's nothing consequential, but I would say that within the last 15 years or so, music has become ever increasingly important for me. It was a coping mechanism for lots of dark times, and the music that eventually called to me the most, the music in my heart, is like metal, punk rock, that sort of stuff. So I was fascinated by the technicality of it, the precision that you hear when you're listening to, you know, really gnarly, thrashy riffs and that sort of thing. I would never, ever consider myself so close-minded I won't listen to anything. There's stuff I don't like. There's a lot of stuff I do like, and a lot of it is very, very, there's a lot of variety. You know, I'll listen to bluegrass one moment, and then I'll go right to death metal, and then I'll listen to Avril Lavigne, and then it'll be Celtic music, you know, and the transitions, they don't strike me as anything, there's nothing wrong with it, you know. It doesn't seem out of place at all. You know, all music, for me, is great, you know, as long as there's music in the world. That's
rare in today's world, to appreciate all genres.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it stems from playing music myself. You kind of, there's an acknowledgement, and it's certainly not a gatekeeping thing. You know, anybody and everybody that likes music, they like it for the right reasons. But for me, the biggest kind of eye opener was trying to play myself, and then learning that, you know, this stuff's hard. So you know, when people of any genre do cool stuff, it's really impressive to me.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
So with today being College Radio Day, and as I mentioned, the theme for today is When All Else Fails, College Radio Speaks.
Right.
Would you like to break down that statement for us?
Well, specifically to myself or just in general?
Oh, let's start with something in general, and I'm curious your interpretation of it.
I believe, and I fully believe, that college radio is providing something that you just are not going to get with a commercial station. And this isn't regurgitating some blurb I heard or rehashing some conversation that we've had in class or whatever. It's a sincere belief. Commercial radio, if you turn it on for 2 hours, you're going to hear the same song 3 times. You're gonna hear the same artist 7 times throughout the day. You know what I mean?
True.
And it's not frustrating insofar as I don't like that music. It's just that you're not getting the variety. You're not allowing anything else to breathe. And because of that, it seems like college radio, because it is independent and it's a lot of students and lovers of music going out there volunteering their time to share new stuff, underground stuff, buried stuff you've never heard before. And because of that, it's doing better for fans of music and fans of radio in general than a commercial station will. And I mean, here at this station we have talk shows, we have music programming, we have DJs that come in here and spin, and they're doing their thing, and it's refreshing because there's that human touch that you're not going to get on a commercial station.
Very humanized.
And when I listen to any commercial radio station and I hear some generalized bleh, this is your today, it's just unimpressive.
Yeah.
They're trying. I'm sure they're professionals and they've been doing it. They've been in the trenches, but at the same time, it's just like, what else you got,
Yeah, it's almost like, I feel like, no offense to professional DJs or anything, but they have to satisfy a lot of people.
Yes.
Not just their listeners, but their studio execs and even the guy across the room.
Yeah, there's a really fine line that
sponsors
that they have to toe.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so because of that, they're kind of held hostage by the business that it is.
Sure, and we don't have that kind of restriction here at College Radio, do we?
They don't have guns to our foreheads.
More like slingshots, but we can dodge those easy.
Yeah.
So it's not so bad.
Yeah.
Cool. So you mentioned that you played instruments as well. What kind of instruments do you play?
Okay.
Where do we start? Let's do a timeline. When you were a wee toddler.
Didn't actually start that early. I was gifted a guitar at 16, and I put it in a closet and I let it get dusty. I didn't really start playing guitar until turned 2006, until I turned about I was 20. And so the guitar, and then following that, I got on the bass, and then I got into drums, and I did vocals for a little bit. None of it well, just a lot of noise.
Well, you know what? We play music for the love of it, right?
Yeah. Well, back then it was horrible. There's a little bit of improvement since, but no, seriously, just like a very small amount of improvement. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a very frustrating period where you're learning, but afterwards everything kind of comes naturally, and it's a lot of fun.
So guitar was your primary instrument. Any others?
No, just the bass, which is an extension of the guitar, or a derivation of the guitar, and then the drums. Drums are my favorite. If I could go back in time, I would have learned the drums from the gate. But
got rhythm?
Not to dance, but I can keep beat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, drums are great to if you're really good at keeping rhythm, because I think everything else follows that: the melody, the vocals, everything. So we need the rhythm. Wonderful. So your guitar that you have, do you still have it?
Yeah, actually,
the original.
This would be a really good time into the story that
segue into it.
Yeah, exactly. So, hi, my name's Tony. I'm an ex-felon. I was arrested at 18. It was March of 2004, and I wound up spending 11 years and 1 month in prison. And it's as bad as you can imagine, but surprisingly, there were a lot of bright spots. And the bright spot that I can reliably say is being one of the best experiences and best moments in my life was when I received my first guitar from home. It was March 16th, 2006, exactly 2 years and 1 day after I was arrested. And prior to receiving that guitar, I was going through jail and then sentencing, and then I actually wound up making it to a penitentiary. And There was a lot of really sad time there. You know, that's 2 years of just like your life sucks now. Everything you thought is now gone. Every future possibility you had is been, all those doors are closed, and it was a really depressing time. I wound up attempting suicide.
Sorry.
And
to hear that.
hey, you know, this people go through crazy stuff, you know, and there was I obviously I'm here, so I failed at that too, and the guitar wound up becoming this conduit. You know what I mean? For like a therapeutic conduit. And I mean, I use that term loosely because there are people that actually need these kinds of these totems, these things, these concrete objects, and they channel and they heal through them. And I will say that I see the guitar as that, but it really was more or less a method for me to be productive while I was incarcerated, aside from going to school and working in there. You know what I mean? So the guitar. I still have that guitar. It's in a case. I was thinking about bringing it here, but I had a late morning. I had a lot of stuff to do because we're getting ready for this.
Tony's been really busy, honestly, running like a chicken with his head cut off.
Yeah, definitely. So the guitar, got it in 2006, and you know, you wind up hanging out on the yard, and there's people, and for me, I wound up interacting with a gentleman named Brian St. Jean, and he was our resident metalhead. And it's really funny because, you know, he had his guitar and I had my guitar, but keep in mind, these are acoustic instruments, you know, they're not devised to be amplified or have any sort of, they don't have any natural distortion.
Oh yeah, all you've got, you don't want to carry all this equipment around with you. You just want one acoustic guitar and
yeah, exactly.
you're good to go.
And that's all you can have in there. So, so it's funny because we're playing like Slayer and Metallica on acoustic guitars, and it sounds really, really dinky. It's so ridiculous just to think about the sounds that we had. But you know, in your head, you're like thrashing, like you're
filling all the gaps.
Oh my God, yeah, it sounds amazing, you know. And it's just an interesting thing. So I wound up hanging out with Brian St. Jean, and he started showing me how to play metal. He really taught me how to play metal. He was an excellent musician himself, and I mean, he played everything as well. But you know, kindred spirits. He was a metalhead. I wound up really getting into that style of music, and so it became natural that I start exploring and talking to people about that sort of stuff. And there's a solid handful of us on the yard that had, you know, collections of CDs. I had none at the time when I was first starting. So I wound up talking to my friend Tilch and Puke and Bam Bam. These are all real names. These are their handles. It's not their real names. I'm sorry. It's their handles. Yeah, but I mean, okay. So Brian was Bonzo. Bam Bam was Bruce Harvey. Puke was Jacob. I wound up talking to Reggie, Regimental, Reggie. All these names, and we wound up just hanging out and sharing music. And I'm like, this is all brand new, and this just waterfall of new music for myself to really enjoy. And they wound up being like stuff like punk rock and hardcore and metal, and then there was classic stuff, and there was country, and there was Hank Williams, and there was Merle Haggard, and then there was some hip hop. You know what I mean? There was like De La Soul and Wu-Tang and stuff like that. And it's just like all this new music is really, really impressing itself upon me, because music at that point became like the thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. The thing. That's how I was doing time. I had the radio on, and it was just like constant
way
music.
To pass the time as well.
Exactly. It was a way to pass the time. You know, count time comes, you pop a CD on, you take a nap. And then when the CD's over, you wake up and you go to chow. Stuff like that, you know? When you're working out, you put a CD on and you're listening and you're doing stuff. But, geez, it's a lot of talking about.
Well, you created a regimen, it sounds like, which also is important, I think, for structuring life, no matter where you are or what you're doing.
That's very true. It's very true. It was just a way of distributing effort throughout the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a certain amount of energy went to this, went to that, and through all of this, I'm in San Luis Obispo, and there's a college station out there, KCPR, based out of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And they have on Wednesdays, amongst all the other days, but Wednesdays was the day. Wednesday was, starting at 7 was the Roster Revolution, and then 8 to 10 was Punk is Dead, and then from 10 to 11, New Noise Manifesto, and from 11 to 1 was Satanic Carnage. And these DJs were responsive. We wrote in, and it would be like, "Hey man, can you play this for my boy? Blah 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 blah. Hey, can you play this? Can you play this? Hey, I've never heard this song. Can you play this?" And it was this was all in place long before I got there. You know what I mean?
So they already had something,
a rapport,
almost like a club.
Exactly.
You guys had there that you're just like, I'm joining the club.
Yeah,
the music club.
They already had a rapport with the station up there, and they were already writing in and talking and so on and so forth. So it was just kind of like, hey, come on out Wednesday nights, and we'll go all listen to it. So we'd hang out. We'd either walk laps around the track, or if someone had a J-Win, which is a boombox.
I was curious, actually. J-Win, is that an acronym?
Yeah, no. Well, I'm sure it's an acronym, but J-Win is just it's just a general boombox. All the appliances in there are clear, so they're a manufacturer of clear appliances.
Okay.
And so you have that thing, and you can take it to the yard, and if the speakers are working, you just blast it.
So you turned the level up to 10. It still wasn't loud enough, right? Did you do something?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the coolest memories that I have of that time was tuning in and emptying a trash can off the yard, and then throwing the J-Win inside the trash can just to get it to be really boomy and amplified.
Smart.
And we would just huddle around it like we were, hanging out by a bonfire or something like that. And, we're just thrashing out all night, just music, hardcore tunes, just digging it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the routine. Every Wednesday, I'd tune into KCPR. I'd listen to them all throughout the rest of the week. Like on Mondays, they had Milk Crates for Days. They had Torch, which was all like French lounge music on Tuesdays. They had all sorts of really, really cool stuff on Saturday nights. And I believe there's a couple of stations that still do blues on Saturday nights. And it was just, it was so much better than the commercial radio out there. And I don't want to call out those commercial radios, those stations, because, they sucked. And I don't want to put them down like that.
Well, although our listening audience is probably curious, not about that. I'm not going to put them on the spot. But did you ever write in to the radio stations?
Yeah.
Did you ever get responses?
Well, definitely. Whenever we would write in, they were super responsive. It was almost like a long distance relationship. You know what I mean? An old long distance relationship using snail mail and stuff. So we would send something out, right? And it was like, okay, so I sent it out on Wednesday. That means it should get there on Monday. That means he should have time to put it all together on Wednesday.
Wow.
And then that sort of
very calculated.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you get it good with the mail because that's
important.
all you got. You know what I mean? So mail becomes like this second nature thing, and people would write in weekly, and it would be just like this regular block. Like, here, this block's for Reggie. So Citizen Dick was the host for Punk Is Dead, and this block goes out to Reggie, and this one goes out to Bam Bam, and this one goes out to Tilch, and you'd hear these songs, and it would be like, hey, I put a song in there. You'd see each other in the morning throughout the day. You're at the weight pile or you're going to work together. It's like, hey, I put in a song. You better listen to that. I'll be there, bro. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff. And then it would be, I played that song for you. You know what I mean? It would be Dead Kennedys for somebody, or it would be somebody's birthday, and we'd play them a really, really horrible song. Like, that's your birthday song. So suck it. That sort of stuff. And that's kind of what it was like. We would write in. They'd talk about us on the air. They'd say, hey, you know what I mean? Like, we really felt like an integral part of their experience also, because it's college radio.
Yeah.
You're not touching everybody in LA Metro. You're in a college town, and you're lucky if the students are tuned in and not on Spotify or Pandora.
Yeah.
So I would like to think that we were a major part of the listening audience for those particular shows. If not, then that's great too, because that means they had a good wide reach. But if we were what they looked forward to every week, then we feel really good about that. We would feel really good about that.
Did you ever find it hard to miss a show, or like maybe something out of your control? And what would you do in situations like that?
Yeah, like if you get locked down or your batteries died, or any random thing, like if your radio went down, if it broke, dude, you were.
Does that happen before your J-Win?
The J-Win went down a couple of times. Like, I tried to get some rechargeable. They have electricians. They have electrical specialists on the yard, and they'd break in and they'd start tweaking on stuff. And so I needed to get some rechargeable setup in there, and the thing was down for like a week. I'm like, bro, you're killing me right now. So, if something goes down, you're like scrambling. Hey, bro, you got an extra radio? No, bro, I don't have another radio.
Oh, gosh.
Dude, I need another radio. Well, you got to go talk to this guy. And it would be like a mission.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
You're spending 3 hours trying to find a little AM, FM radio so you can listen to the show.
And it was like a bartering system, right? Because you said you had CDs. Would you ever trade
trade
CDs with other
So
mates?
aside from every Wednesday ritual, got to be out there, sacrifice a goat, that sort of thing. Other than that, everybody had collections of CDs. You know what I mean? I wound up having a really decent sized collection. Mine wound up getting in around 170, 180. But there were guys that had like 300. Their entire locker and their entire shelves dedicated to nothing but music. So you'd go around, and it's like, hey man, can I get this, 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 and this? And you wind up cataloging every one of your CDs. Every time you add a CD, you'll put it on the end of the list, and it's like, man, this is all out of order. So you'll spend an hour alphabetizing a list for somebody else to have. And you just like, here's a list for you. Here's a list for you. And, you go through somebody's list if you get tired of your stuff. And then it's kind of like, hey, bro, let me borrow, Seasons of the Abyss, South of Heaven, and Divine Intervention.
Mm-hmm.
All right, bro, I'll go get it. You know what I mean? And then he's like, hey, can I get Within the Remains, some Lamb of God and this, that, and the other, you know what I mean? Or some Agnostic Front, stuff like that. And it was just a natural thing, it's like just like borrowing a movie from Netflix or something.
Yeah, like when we were kids, I mean, when I was a kid at least, I know we would be borrowing DVDs and audio CDs very similarly, although even from our friends, we wouldn't always get it back.
Yeah, exactly.
So has that ever been an issue where you couldn't get your CDs back you lent out?
Well, if you lend something out and somebody gets rolled up, locked up into the shoe or the hole.
Something out of their control.
Well, something that they were fully in control of, but they refused to. Yeah, exactly. So if somebody gets in trouble and they roll up your CDs, like, you know what I mean? And you try, if you know the cop that did the roll up, they might let you go in and get your stuff, but generally not. So, stuff came and went. I wound up picking up a few CDs from people that got rolled up, but, hey, that's just the nature of the game. Yeah. So it was, you do wind up tiering your collection. So it's kind of like, hey, I'm gonna let you listen to this, but I need it back. Or like, I don't trust you. You can't
make
touch
them
my
accountable,
stuff.
right?
Yeah,
that's important.
Exactly.
So you said your locker was full of CDs.
Yeah.
Does that mean you had no room for anything else?
Yeah, soups, food, none of that.
What did you eat? Your CDs?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean,
crunchy.
They feed you, but that's yeah, the priority was and always has been since then music. Yeah. So it was like I'll go hungry if I can have some more music.
That explains a lot, and that's why we're interviewing you right now, because you're the best man for this job.
Well, no, right on. I'm glad it speaks to the theme. You know what I mean? That's an obvious plug for College Radio Day, just so y'all know. Yeah.
It's true. When all else fails, college radio speaks, and Tony's a prime example of that.
Right on.
Yeah, we're so happy to have him here.
Right on. Well, hey, I'm tired, so I'd like to go to bed. But you guys are great.
There's a corner over there you can take a nap if you like.
Sure I'll get a pillow.
Yeah. Because next up we have Knife Girl and DJ Deacon will be hosting.
Yeah.
That up here.
That's really, really cool. We have a lot of really cool guests coming up.
Yes, we do.
Knife Girl. We have a rapper from Poly, T Lost. After that, we got Valdivia X, which is a really, really cool art rock. Awesome
rock
band.
Serialism thing.
Jimmy Dale, blues, jazz, guitar. After that, we have Sylvia Bosco. She's a really awesome singer-songwriter. And then we'll close everything out with Rafael Carlos Serrato. He's a really cool singer-songwriter as well. So if y'all care, please stay tuned to KLBC.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
And we welcome Tony here, and we thank him for his time.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
We appreciate you here.
Right on. This was really cool. This was really cool.
Great. Thank you. Please stand by for our next segment.